He was just a kid, a brilliant student with a secret life. By day, he aced his classes, a beacon of hope in a struggling school. By night, he was a ghost, a silent worker in the graveyard shift, his small hands stained with grease, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. He did it all for his family, a family burdened by a secret they were too proud to share. He thought he had fooled everyone, but he had underestimated his teacher, a woman who saw not just a student, but a soul. She stumbled upon his secret, and what she did next would change his life forever. You won't believe the devastating truth she uncovered, and the powerful lesson she learned about the quiet sacrifices people make for love. In the quiet, working-class town of Fall Creek, Ohio, where the air hummed with the slow, rhythmic groan of industry and the dreams of a generation felt as worn as the factory floor, lived a 17-year-old boy named Leo Rodriguez. He was, to the casual observer, a walking paradox. By day, he was a model student at Fall Creek High. He was a straight-A student, a member of the debate team, and the unassuming captain of the school's robotics club. He was a quiet, introspective soul who found solace in the intricate formulas of physics and the complex logic of computer code. He was a beacon of hope, a testament to the idea that a mind could transcend its circumstances. His teachers saw him as a scholarship student, a future Ivy Leaguer, a boy destined for greatness. They saw him as the golden ticket out of Fall Creek, a small, forgotten town where the only way out was to get a job in the factory. By night, Leo was a different person entirely. He was a ghost, a silent worker in the graveyard shift at the local auto parts factory. He would slip out of his house at 11 p.m., his small, slender frame swallowed by the darkness, his backpack slung over his shoulder, a world of textbooks and dreams hidden inside. He would walk the 2 miles to the factory, a hulking, metal behemoth that cast a long, menacing shadow over the town. He was an assembler, a faceless worker on an endless assembly line, his hands a blur of motion, his mind a steel trap of exhaustion. He would work until 6 a.m., his body aching, his eyes heavy with sleep, his hands stained with the indelible marks of grease and oil. He was an other, a person who existed in a different world, a world of fluorescent lights, metallic clangs, and a profound, unyielding exhaustion. Leo's secret was a simple, brutal one. His father, a proud, hard-working man who had spent his life on the factory floor, had been laid off 6 months ago. The factory, once a symbol of stability, had become a ghost town, a testament to the changing tides of industry. His mother, a woman who had spent her life as a homemaker, was suddenly faced with the impossible task of providing for her family. They had a younger sister, a small, bright-eyed girl named Sophia, who was a student at the local elementary school. The family was sinking, slowly, silently, a ship with a hole in its hull. They were too proud to ask for help, too proud to tell their son, their golden boy, their future, about the truth. They told him they were cutting back, that things were tight, that they would manage. But Leo, with his quiet, unyielding intelligence, saw the truth. He saw the way his father looked at the job listings with a profound sense of hopelessness. He saw the way his mother would lie awake at night, her face a mask of silent despair. He saw the truth, and he knew he had to do something. He found the job through a friend, a boy who worked the same shift. He had a fake ID, a fake birth certificate, a fake name. He was Leon, a college dropout looking for work. He was a ghost, a phantom, a person who existed only in the quiet of the night. He would work his shift, his mind a blur of motion, his body a canvas of pain, and then he would walk home, his mind racing with the thought of his homework, his projects, his exams. He would get home at 6:30 a.m., his body a wreck, his mind a ghost, and he would shower, eat a quick breakfast, and go to school, his backpack a world of textbooks and dreams. He would sit in class, his eyes heavy with exhaustion, his mind a fog of fatigue, and he would force himself to focus, to learn, to be the person he was meant to be. He was a brilliant student, a future Ivy Leaguer, a boy destined for greatness. He was also a tired, weary ghost, a boy who was carrying the weight of his family on his small, slender shoulders. His secret was safe, or so he thought. He had fooled everyone, from his parents to his teachers. He was a master of his own deception, a quiet, unyielding chameleon who could be a brilliant student by day and a weary worker by night. But he had underestimated his English teacher, a woman named Ms. Carter. Ms. Carter was an English teacher with a difference. She was a woman who saw not just words, but the stories behind them. She saw not just students, but the souls behind them. She had a soft, unyielding kindness that was as captivating as it was unsettling. She saw Leo not just as a brilliant student, but as a person with a quiet, unyielding dignity that she had never seen before. She saw the way his eyes would sometimes sag with a profound, unyielding exhaustion. She saw the way he would sometimes fall asleep in her class, his head resting on his desk, his body a canvas of fatigue. She saw the truth, and she knew, with a chilling certainty, that something was wrong. She would try to talk to him, to ask him if he was all right. He would simply smile, a tired, weary expression, and he would say, "I'm fine, Ms. Carter. Just studying too hard." She would believe him, but her heart would ache with a profound, unyielding sense of worry. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that something was wrong. She knew that the boy who was a brilliant student by day was a ghost by night. She knew that he was carrying a secret that was slowly, silently, killing him. One afternoon, after class, she saw him walking home, his body a wreck, his eyes heavy with sleep. She decided to follow him. She drove her car, a small, unassuming sedan, and she followed him, her heart pounding in her chest. She followed him past his house, past the well-manicured lawns of his neighborhood, and she saw him turn down a side street that led to a different world, a world of factories and warehouses. She followed him to the factory, the hulking, metal behemoth that cast a long, menacing shadow over the town. She saw him walk to the guard's booth, he flashed a fake ID, and he walked in, a ghost, a phantom, a person who existed only in the quiet of the night. Ms. Carter's world imploded. She sat in her car, her hands gripping the steering wheel, her eyes wide with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and a profound, aching despair. She looked at the factory, at the hulking, metal beast that was swallowing her student, her golden boy, her future, and she felt a profound, unyielding sense of loss. She had a scholarship waiting for him, a full ride to a top-tier university, a golden ticket out of Fall Creek, a future that was as bright as the stars. And here he was, working in a factory, a ghost, a phantom, a person who was slowly, silently, dying. She felt a profound, aching sadness, a sadness that words could never express. She was a teacher, a woman who had dedicated her life to helping students, to guiding them, to showing them the way. And here she was, a silent, helpless witness to a tragedy that was unfolding before her eyes. She drove home, her mind a blur of pain and regret. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She couldn't think. She was a teacher, and she had failed. She had seen the signs, the exhaustion, the quiet sadness, the profound, unyielding dignity, and she had done nothing. She had simply stood by, a silent, helpless witness to a tragedy that was unfolding before her eyes. She felt a profound, aching sense of shame, a shame that was far worse than any physical pain. The next day, she went to her classroom, her face a mask of quiet determination. She saw Leo walk in, his eyes heavy with sleep, his hands stained with the indelible marks of grease and oil. He sat down at his desk, his body a canvas of fatigue, his mind a fog of exhaustion. She looked at him, and in his eyes, she saw not a student, but a hero. She saw not a boy, but a man. She saw a quiet, unyielding strength that was far more powerful than any A's or any trophies. She walked up to his desk, her heart pounding in her chest. "Leo," she said, her voice a small, hesitant whisper. I know. I know what you're doing." Leo's world imploded. He looked up at her, his face a mask of disbelief, his eyes wide with a mixture of fear and shame. He saw the woman who had always believed in him, the woman who had always seen his potential, the woman who was now a silent, unseen witness to his secret life. He saw Ms. Carter, and he knew, with a chilling certainty, that his secret was out. He had no words. He had no pride. He had no dignity. He was a broken boy, a boy who had been caught, and he had no one to blame but himself. Ms. Carter simply looked at him, her eyes welling up with tears. She didn't say a word. She simply reached out her hand, and she clasped his. Her hands, once so soft and delicate, were now a symbol of her strength, her kindness, her quiet grace. He looked at her, and he saw not a person, but an angel. He saw not a teacher, but a healer. He saw not a woman with a kind heart, but a woman with a profound, unyielding soul. He looked at her, and he knew, with a profound, aching despair, that he had been utterly, completely, wrong. She had an unyielding love for her students, and she would not let him sink. She would not let him fail. She had a scholarship waiting for him, a scholarship that would change his life, a scholarship that would change his family's life. But she knew that he would not take it. He would not take a handout. He was a proud, unyielding boy who was willing to sacrifice everything for his family. She knew that she had to do something else. She had to find a way to help him, to save him, to give him a future he deserved. She went to the school principal, a man named Mr. Thompson, and she told him the truth. She told him about Leo, about his family, about his secret life. Mr. Thompson, a man who had dedicated his life to education, was a man who believed in second chances. He was a man who believed in the power of a story. He listened to her, his face a mask of quiet composure. He looked at her, and he saw not a teacher, but a hero. He saw a woman who was willing to fight for her student, to fight for his future, to fight for his life. Mr. Thompson, a man who had a profound, unyielding sense of dignity, made a call. He called a friend, a CEO of a local tech company, a man who had once been a student at Fall Creek High. He told him about Leo, about his brilliance, about his quiet, unyielding strength, about his secret life. The CEO, a man who had a quiet, unyielding sense of humility, listened to him, his face a mask of quiet composure. He knew the story. He knew the town. He knew the people. He knew what it was like to be a ghost, a phantom, a person who existed only in the quiet of the night. He made a decision. He offered Leo a job, not a job as an assembler, but a job as a junior apprentice, a job that would be remote, a job that would pay him more than he had ever earned, a job that would allow him to work from home, a job that would allow him to be a student by day and a hero by night. He offered him a way out, a way to be a hero without having to sacrifice his future, without having to sacrifice his dreams. He offered him a chance to be a man, a chance to be a hero, a chance to be a son. Leo, a man who had never accepted a handout in his life, was humbled. He looked at the CEO, a man who had once been a ghost, a phantom, and he saw not a boss, but a mentor. He saw not a person, but a lifeline. He saw a man who had been a hero, a man who had been a champion, a man who was now a man of quiet, unyielding dignity. He accepted the job. He had found his redemption, not in a new job, not in a scholarship, but in the quiet, profound act of being a son. He had learned that true dignity was not in a title, but in a kind heart. He had learned that true wealth was not in money, but in the love you gave, and the lives you touched. He had walked into the factory as a loser, and he had walked out as a champion. And in that moment, he knew that he was finally, truly, free. He had found his humanity, not in a prestigious college, but in a dark, empty factory. He had been broken, but he had been remade. He had lost his youth, but he had gained something far more valuable, his dignity. This story is a powerful reminder that you never know what someone is going through. It's a reminder that a simple act of kindness, a single word of compassion, can change a life forever. It's a reminder that true strength is not in a title, but in a kind heart. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of the power of empathy. Like and subscribe for more stories that will change your perspective and remind you that sometimes, the most valuable lessons are the ones that are learned in the quiet of the night.